Welcome to another podcast with some of my favorite people in the world, Tyson Ewing and Austin
Oh
Pacer. We all met
man,
as jazz broadcast assistants, and here we are, still very energetic with our opinions. And
and we still like each other
we still like each other. And there's so much to
for the most
discuss
part.
because the Jazz are going to do something they haven't done in a long while. We are crossing our fingers. I can't get ahead of myself here, but they've got the opportunity to advance to the next round. It's been a while since they've done that, and I want to start there, guys. A lot of people have been talking about Joe Johnson, and rightfully so. He's been unbelievable. But pertaining to Game 5, I think the most pivotal performance, and I want to get you guys' take, of course, but Gordon Hayward's performance was like ridiculous, considering he was probably like, what, 70%? It's not easy to come back from food poisoning and do what he did, making clutch plays. I thought that was really, really impressive. And again, credit to Joe Johnson. He came up big when the Jazz needed him, but the most underrated performance of that night was Gordon Hayward.
Oh, you're
Go
absolutely
for it.
right,
I'll let
Matt.
you start with
Who dares
Austin.
argues
Go
with me?
ahead. No, I'm just looking at Gordon's stats, and I think the most impressive thing is that he really helped the Jazz get going early in the game. He really
Yes.
helped them, and that really helped them down the line. I mean, in a close game, the whole every aspect of the game matters, especially the early parts. And with 11 points in the first quarter, he was really able to set the tone and say, "Hey, this isn't going to be a game for the Clippers. This is a game that the Jazz are here to steal."
Yep. Think about how many plays he made,
Well,
specifically in the fourth. Like, you've got the offensive rebound tap out to Joe that pushes the lead out. And you also have he made a huge three at the end of a shot. That was a bailout three at the end of a shot clock where the Clippers were making that run, and then he hits a shot or gets a big rebound that pushes that lead back out to 5.
that was just going to be my point exactly. The words right out of my mouth. I think what he did behind the scenes, like that rebounding. I mean, he controlled the glass as well. I think he had 8 rebounds in the ball game. But I mean, from the tip, despite having that disadvantage of being sick the day before, having to leave early. I mean, you guys know this. He left the game, literally walked out of the arena, went home, and went to bed early, and was back 2 days later. I mean, yes, food poisoning is a quick sickness that you're in, that you're out, but for him to be able to bounce back the way that he did, have the game that he had, 20 rebounds, it's absolutely phenomenal to think that this young kid was able to help guide that team, and especially that big play, and dare I say the biggest play of the ball game was when he snuck in on Jamal Crawford, tapped that ball back out, gave Joe Johnson a look. But one of the most underrated plays, and something that I think that when you watch the broadcast, that you don't think that it's going that this is a big pivotal part of the game. That's Chris Paul, where
Yes.
clearly you can
Glad you
see
brought
Chris
that up.
Paul where Chris Paul tackled him, came around him and like really just hugged him as tight as he possibly could. How
Right.
he stood up for himself was
Yeah.
phenomenal.
It's amazing how wildly unlikable Chris Paul has been in this series. He's
No kidding, dude.
I mean, I imagine he's the kind of guy that you hate to play against, but you would love to have him on his team. I imagine it was kind of probably what I imagine John Stockton was like to play against
Yes.
in
Agreed.
his prime. But I mean, the Chris Paul storyline has been phenomenal as well. And just going back to Gordon really quick, I think the most impressive stat for his night in Game 5 was the fact that he led the game in minutes played. He played 40 minutes and 46 seconds on a sore tummy. I mean,
Amazing.
that in itself is phenomenal. I mean,
Yes.
no other guy on the Jazz played more than 35 minutes. I mean, for a guy to be that sick and to be in the game that long and have that kind of impact is
and
super
to
key.
be efficient, Austin. I mean, I'm piggybacking on your point, but it's not like he had a Russell Westbrook night where, yeah, he's got the numbers, but it's 27 points on 22 field goal attempts. That was not the game that Gordon Hayward had.
Yeah.
Which efficiency is something I think is just wildly underrated in the NBA. Gordon Hayward has always
I
been
agree.
efficient.
Well, I think
absolutely. I mean, it's wildly underrated. It's crazy.
Go ahead, Austin. What are you going to say?
No, it's totally crazy. Yeah, I think we just live in a superficial world right now where it's kind of hard to dig into the box scores. A lot of people don't have the access that we have on NBA Media Central, where we can dig in and see just how many shots these guys are taking and what they're able to do on the court. Yep. You know, I mean, 47 points by Westbrook is impressive, but just like Patrick Beverley said, not nearly as impressive when you realize he's putting up 34 shots. You know?
Yeah.
And to your point, Hayward scoring 27 points on 16 shots, going 4 for 8 from the three-point line, and a perfect 5 for 5 from the free throw line. That is efficiency with a capital F, my friend.
F?
Whatever letter it starts with.
I think you're looking for E, brother.
That's a joke. Yeah. That's a joke, everybody.
Efficiency, baby. That's what I'm talking about.
Efficiency. That's what they should call it.
You know, I'm glad you brought up Westbrook. You know, I think it's an appropriate time to pivot to Westbrook because he puts such ridiculous numbers up. But I'm interested to hear what you guys think. But I'm of the camp that I'm not as impressed with Westbrook's numbers as other people are. Like triple doubles left and right, huge scoring outputs. But what impact is he having on the team? You know, like when Oladipo's numbers are a lot lower, you know, Oladipo's a great example of my point that Westbrook hasn't helped his teammates out, but his numbers increase every year, and then he goes to Oklahoma and he takes a step backwards. Like I just can't accept that was because of Oladipo. Like I have to believe that Westbrook's domination of the ball and his style of play made it difficult for his teammates to help him.
Kind of pivoting off your point though, what have?
Who's
the second best player on that team?
I mean,
Steven Adams, maybe
Steven or Oladipo. Yeah, definitely. Right.
I mean, that's kind of my point. I mean, fact of the matter is, I mean, I aside from the numbers, because obviously numbers can persuade somebody one way or another, but aside from the numbers, what he did for the team, when you look at who else he has on that team, Steven Adams is his second. Yeah, Steven Adams is a great hustler. But, I mean, it's crazy to think that could possibly be the second best player on a team that finished 6th in the Western Conference. Westbrook led that team in so many ways and basically had to be a ball-dominating player for that team in order to have them be successful. I mean, this was a team that you looked at the beginning of the year and you thought, man, this is a team that I don't even know if they're going to be able to make the playoffs.
Hold on, Tyson, because you may think this, but Vegas did not think so. You know, Vegas had the Thunder and Westbrook winning over 45.5 games to start the year, and they didn't even have the Rockets at over 40 wins. So
I think that's insane because, I mean, if you go back to their opening day roster, and I mean, I remember specifically tweeting out a picture of their rosters, just looking at it and only seeing Westbrook and thinking, ugh. Man, was the team really this bad without Kevin Durant? And I'm looking at that, I'm thinking, how can this team even win games? They don't really have anybody else. So, I mean, to your point, I mean, I'm impressed that Vegas thought that they were going to be that good because I looked at that roster and thought, I don't know where wins are going to come from this team besides, you know, the bottom of the bottom of the Western Conference, the bottom of the Eastern Conference. I don't know where else these wins are going to come from.
Take my side, Austin.
I'm probably somewhere in the middle, to be honest. I mean, gosh, I think you both have great points. I didn't think the Thunder were going to be a playoff team at the beginning of the year, and I think Westbrook really took that team on his back and carried them all by himself. And we saw in the playoffs the on-off differentials when he was on the court and when he wasn't, just the difference that he made. I mean, that team is a joke without him. You know, I think
it's hard to prove my point factually speaking, but I just wonder, yeah, his team is a joke, but what did he contribute to that? You know what I mean? Because before the start of this year, I think anyone in the NBA would have taken Steven Adams over Rudy Gobert before the start of the year. Now it's obvious that it's Rudy, but before the start of the year, Cantor and Adams and Oladipo were pretty highly regarded players, and they all took a step back.
I'm going to go back to, if you remember the Western Conference Finals of last season when it went to 7 games against the Warriors. I think people, I mean, and I think I fall into this trap quite often as well. But when you think about uh, when the season ends, you're not thinking about the regular season. I don't have his stats up there, but I can guarantee you, Steven Adams during the regular season was nothing like he was in the Western Conference Finals during that 7-game stretch. People
Right.
were riding that 7-game stretch as such a major building point for Steven Adams. Yes,
Yeah.
he's come in this second season and he's proven that he's a really viable player at that position. But I mean, I think people at the beginning or at the end of last season were looking at just that series and not his overall body of work from last year, because he did not do that well.
That's fair.
Well, in my opinion, I mean, the Westbrook versus, and I think it's obvious that it's in the MVP race. It's the argument between him and James Harden.
Yep.
And in my opinion, I think it's the argument. Westbrook shows just exactly what one player is capable of doing, whereas Harden's argument shows the power of what the right coach can do in the right system.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's not to say I don't think Billy Donovan's a bad coach. I just think he was dealt. I just don't know if he's got the personality.
He was dealt a bad hand, that's for sure.
You know what's interesting is this reminds me, as a die-hard Lakers fan, this scenario reminds me of something I lived through 10 years ago, which was Kobe runs Shaq off, and then he drags them to the playoffs in a year which he should have won MVP, but Steve Nash wins it. They face each other in the playoffs. Lakers go up 3-1. It goes to Game 7, and then Kobe has this ridiculous first half in Game 7, but the Lakers aren't even competing. And then Phil Jackson tells him at halftime, yo, we can't win with you scoring like this. It's just not possible. So Kobe goes out, probably arrogantly tries to prove a point to Phil that, all right, I'm not going to shoot it all. I'm going to pass it the whole game. They get blown off. They lose. Yeah, the Lakers don't have the talent. But the thing that was interesting about that versus Westbrook is Kobe had a mentor like Phil who could communicate to him, you can't play this way. And,
right.
and after that game, I don't think Kobe Bryant ever played like that again. He became the 37-5 guy. It helps that they got a bunch more talent after that too. I'm not discrediting that. But he stopped playing the way Westbrook's playing now, and they went a lot further. So who is in Westbrook's inner circle that's going to tell him, we're not going to win if you do this? Who's going to tell him that?
I don't think they could have won any other way, though. That's the thing. I think they need to have a viable second option in order for –
I don't think they could have won regardless, period. They just didn't have the horses at all. I mean, quite frankly, Kevin Durant was the reason why that team did so well last season. Russell Westbrook is the reason why they even had a chance at making the playoffs this season.
To my last point on this about Kobe comparing to Westbrook, though, is the next season – the Lakers were on a major tear before they got Gasol. So they did bring in Derek Fisher and Trevor Ariza, but those were minor acquisitions in the grand scheme of things. And then they got Gasol midseason, but before that, he had changed the way he played. So I don't know. I'd be really curious to see with Russ Westbrook if he, rather than shooting 34 shots a game, I mean, he was 5 of 18 from 3. I'm pretty sure I'm accurate from that. What if he was 4 of 11? And he gave 7 other shots to other people? I'd love to know what would happen. That's just kind of my point.
It just feels insane that we're saying a guy who averaged double-digit assists, needs to change the way he played his game, though. That's crazy. That's
I agree with that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean,
I mean, just kind of my last point here before we kind of continue onward. I mean, when you look at what he did, 33-9 when he tallied a triple-double this season. I mean, 42 triple-doubles. And in that, whenever he did that, 33-9. So again, where you do say, I understand that, you can't necessarily win in the big scheme of things when you play that way. But during the regular season, I mean, 33-9 as their record when he had a triple-double.
Yeah.
I think the playoffs are just a different animal. I think that's what you got to take away from it. Yeah.
You know what's also interesting from a macro perspective on the Thunder is, do they have any player development there? Like, they are loaded with top 15 picks. I know that's kind of a crapshoot, but man, like when you've got McDermott and Sabonis and the list can go on and on and on with supposed
Steven Adams
talent, Steven Adams. Why aren't they getting better?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, if they were such highly touted prospects, why did they get traded to the Thunder in the first place?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. That's my
Fred
thought. Like,
Hoiberg is why. All right.
if I'm an Orlando Magic GM and I trade Victor Oladipo, my justification is that I didn't think he was going to be that good, or else I wouldn't have traded him away. You know what I mean? If he was really going to be that good, they wouldn't have been traded away by their respective draft teams so early in their careers. So,
yeah, but it's funny. It's kind of heart wrenching to look back on that trade now and think, what did the Magic get in return for that trade?
Nothing, because they went and traded the guy they got in the
yeah, they got rid of Ibaka, didn't they? Yeah.
So I guess this is a good place to pivot onto the awards. I think that I've made it clear that I'm in the Harden MVP camp. You guys are probably Westbrook, and you know what's hard about this is that both are deserving. That's the thing. Both are deserving of winning the MVP.
Cut the trophy in half.
We're really nitpicking about the craziest things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
declare yourself Westbrook MVP.
Wes, I say you give it to him. Yeah.
You're sick, Austin.
I acknowledge that.
You even have the beard, and you're voting for Westbrook.
I have to go with Russell Westbrook as well. I mean, let me just read to this. I mean, Westbrook, he led the league in scoring. Okay, he averaged 31.9 points per game, and yes, I understand it's not all about the numbers. Yes. So he finished 31.9 points per game. He was inside the top 5 in assists per game, obviously over 10 assists per game, and in the top 10 in rebounds as a point guard in rebounds. And I mean, like we talked about with the talent that Oklahoma City has, he basically had to drag that team into the playoffs and get a 6th seed. I just don't think the Rockets were a good matchup for Oklahoma City, nor do I think anybody in the top 4 or 5 was a good matchup for him. But regardless, having to drag them into the playoffs, I just don't see how he doesn't get that. I mean, James Harden absolutely very deserving, but my slight edge, if I had to kind of tilt one way on the fence, I'm going to go.
How do you feel about LeBron? Does he have a case or no?
Absolutely, he's the best player in the world. How do you not have a case when you're the best player in the world?
Yeah, it's hard to. I've had this comment with a lot of people. It's hard to remember that the votes were cast before the playoffs started. So
that's right. Yeah,
it's interesting. Like obviously, LeBron had the best performance in the playoffs so far in terms of impacting his team's performance. But
no, I think the way they finished down the stretch, though, in the regular season, I think that eliminates him from contention in the MVP conversation. You know what I mean? I think LeBron really struggled. I think what were they? They were a sub 500 team after the All-Star break.
Yeah, 11 and 15.
Yeah, so I don't think he has a case for it.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I mean, this season you can obviously look at that, but I mean, like I said, he's the best player in the world. No matter how you shake a stick at it, every single season he'll have a case for it until the day he retires, in my opinion. So
he should. I agree with that.
Yep.
So I'm going to kind of build off of this just a little bit because we are in a market where we have one of the players that could win this award this season. In fact, maybe even another one that a player. There might be 3 total awards that a Utah Jazz player can win. But I'm going to start with the one that is pretty big in the state, and one a lot of people here think that he has a good case of winning, and that's obviously Defensive Player of the Year. Who would you say gets your vote for Defensive Player of the Year?
Austin, you want to start?
I would say Gobert, and I think that's obviously the Utah bias in me talking, but I think he's been deserving all year. He's managed to stay relatively healthy and really dominated the game. You know, when you look at the team figures that the Jazz are putting up as far as team defense, points allowed per game and points per 100 possessions, defensive rating, I believe is what they call that.
Yep.
I think clearly Rudy Gobert is the anchor of that, but so he gets my vote, but I don't think he's going to win.
I don't either. It's going to be Draymond Green, but if I had a vote, which I obviously don't, I would vote Gobert too.
Now, why is that obvious?
Because I'm not.
Because we're doing this in front of nobody. Is that?
Hey, we got 0 viewers. Don't mock it, okay?
All right, you got to start from the bottom.
Here, the reason I would vote for Gobert is I feel like, by and large, Golden State has just ridiculous defenders. I think if you were to break down one-on-one, like if you went through the rosters, I feel like Golden State has better defenders than the Jazz. Like when you have Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, Andre Iguodala, Sean Livingston, like with the exception of Curry, it's like everyone else is an above-average defender. Then you take the Jazz, and they've got great defenders too. Like Hayward's underrated, and they've got the length and athleticism at a couple other positions that are impressive as well. George Hill, but Joe Ingles, and he's had a great defensive year. I mean, anyone would take Andre Iguodala over Joe Ingles defensively. So I feel like who has a greater impact? I think Rudy has a greater impact because he allows some of these average defenders to be better than they are. So I think Rudy Gobert has more of an impact.
Well, I mean, this is a good kind of a good way to kind of look at it, and I obviously get that this has zero effect on the actual decision making of who wins the award. But look at the difference between the interior scoring that the Clippers have had in this series that we're watching right now, from when he sat out to when he has been back in the game. You go back to game 2, the points in the paint was absolutely ridiculous, strongly in favor of the Los Angeles Clippers. And when you look at the impact that he's having inside the key, I mean, it's glaring who the best defender in the league is. But I do agree with you, Matt. I don't know how he's going to win it over Green.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what more he can do to be deserving of the win, though. That's the challenging part. I mean, what more could he possibly have to do?
The Jazz would have to win more games.
I think you're right. I think that's it.
I think another one that he could probably do is somehow learn to pickpocket every defender he guards, which is not going to happen. So
no, it's not. Absolutely. Yeah.
I think the Jazz win 60 games, and he's hands down the defensive player of the year.
Hands down, maybe unanimously.
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, a 51 team, I mean, I think people don't dig into the stats enough on a 51 team to really see the difference that he makes, which is a shame, which is too bad.
Absolutely. Let's wrap this up with one more interesting race in the award scene, which is third team All-NBA, which is going to have a huge impact on the offseason because I think it's a 3-man race for one final spot, which is guard/forward, and I think it's between Gordon Hayward, Jimmy Butler, and Paul George. And Jimmy Butler is locked into his contract, so it's really irrelevant. But the other two, there are major implications because Utah, if Gordon Hayward get that spot, the Jazz can offer him a lot more money, which I don't care how you slice it and dice it. When you're making an extra $40 to $50 million, that matters. That is a major advantage.
That's a lot of guacamole.
And then for Paul George, it's like if the Pacers don't have that advantage, I think it becomes that much easier for him to demand a trade or walk next summer. So it's like the Pacers are praying it's George to give them a little more advantage. And then Utah, I think Utah has the advantage anyways to bring Hayward back, but it sure wouldn't hurt to be rewarded with third-team All-NBA and a supermax contract.
Right.
So who do you think it's going to be?
I don't know.
That doesn't make good radio.
I don't know. I just think I mean it's such a titillating argument and such a interesting thing how much the media is going to have a hand in where these players potentially end up next season. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't have the Nielsen ratings. I don't have the information on which market or where the votes are distributed. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, if I'm a Los Angeles reporter and I have a little bit of a Lakers bias, maybe I don't vote for Paul George to be third team NBA. If I'm a Jazz writer, and I'm sure a guy like Andy Larson is one of those, he's going to vote for Gordon Hayward to be third team All NBA, to keep Hayward in the market. And I don't really know if reporters really care that much, but I think some do.
I would. So, if I were a Laker writer, I would not be voting for Paul George. No way.
Right.
Absolutely not.
So how about this then? How about I ask you then? Let's think about who we think are deserving for first, second, and third team All NBA forwards anyway, and then we can kind of decipher who we think.
I don't think it's Jimmy Butler. I really think it's between Paul George and Gordon Hayward. And
so who gets your first team votes then?
Are we talking small forward specifically?
Yes. So
Cool.
let's just kind of go into forwards. Period.
LeBron James. Yeah, LeBron James is obvious, and probably Kevin Durant, right?
I don't think Kevin Durant does. I think he missed too many games towards the end.
So second team for KD.
Yeah, I think he's a second teamer.
Then who gets that other? Go ahead.
So LeBron James gets one vote. My second vote goes to Kawhi Leonard.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that.
That's where I would go. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then you got Durant.
So then
Durant.
So our second team, Durant, and then I have one, but I want to know what you guys think for your second team.
Woo, that's tough. I'm trying to think if there's any Eastern people that I love at forward. No one's jumping off the page here.
So I've got one pick from the Western Conference that I think is a very good spot for this.
Towns?
That's a good choice, but no.
I know.
I'm drawing a blank.
I've got it. It's Marquise Chris from Phoenix.
You got it. Nailed it.
Yeah, lowest field goal percentage in the history of.
I don't know who it is.
I'm gonna say my second forward on my second All NBA team, Anthony Davis.
Anthony Davis. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I think I was just trying to decide if you put him at forward or center, but I guess with Cousins at center, you put forward. You put Anthony Davis at forward.
So then I think we can all kind of agree. So we got LeBron James, we got Kawhi Leonard off the board, we got Kevin Durant off the board, and I guess we can kind of agree on Anthony Davis. That leaves us with two more spots.
Hold on, I don't agree with Anthony Davis. I think Gordon Hayward is better than Anthony Davis.
Ooh.
Anthony Davis has done jack squat for the Pelicans the whole time he's been there, except for one nice season where he drug them to the playoffs and then got waxed by the Warriors. I haven't seen. Okay, something I love about Hayward is that guy definitely brings up talent around him. People play better with Gordon Hayward. That cannot be said for Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is lacking talent, sure, but there's been some talented guys there too. I just don't know why they haven't been better. Why aren't they the Blazers? Lillard hasn't had the best talent. He's got McCollum. That's nice, but he's always in the playoffs, and Anthony Davis is never in the playoffs. I don't get it.
I don't know.
Okay, well, fair argument.
We'll agree to disagree.
So then that leaves us then. So if you take Gordon Hayward then and put him on the second team, I don't agree that he'll be on the second team.
He won't.
I have a couple of players still on my list that are good selections for forward. So with those 4 or 5, who do you think then fall into the third team?
I think you got to put Towns into one of those teams for sure. I think Towns is worthy. What did he averaged? Someone say something clever while I look this up.
Draymond Green's got to fit in somewhere too.
Draymond Green, yeah, for sure.
It's hard to pencil him at center, even though he does that a lot. I think that he goes by forward, technically speaking. So
didn't he win at center last year? Didn't he win center last year?
I don't know. He was all NBA team as a center. Well, they don't technically have a center position. Aren't there 3 forward and 2 guards or something like that, or 3 guards and 2 forwards?
So then if that's the case, what do you feel about then possibly Karl Anthony Towns? Ooh, this is a stretch. This is a big stretch. First team All NBA center.
I don't like it.
Not this year. No, I don't think so. I think you have to reward winners on that kind of team.
Yep.
I don't think the Timberwolves are there yet.
No.
So I'm going to make it. So obviously we've got a case here for Paul George. There's one. Jimmy Butler obviously makes a case. There's 2.
Yeah.
What about another East Coast forward? The Greek freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Oh yeah, geez.
Yes, he's got to go.
This is the golden age of the NBA. There are just so many guys you could put in there. Holy cow.
He's in. He's in before any of them. I think
definitely.
He's probably in before Gordon, right?
I think
absolutely. Yeah, he's been a media darling all season, of course.
So my original answer to your question, going back to it, I actually don't know. I don't know if Gordon's going to draw enough attention because of all those that are filling that position right now that are just playing it slightly better than he is.
So let's just break it down to brass tacks then. Hayward or George, if you had to choose.
God, it's so tricky. It's so tricky. You obviously look at. I mean, obviously, I'm now basing everything that I'm thinking of right now on the playoffs, and Paul George was anything but clutch, especially in the playoffs.
Well, he's
But
never been
man,
clutch at any point in his career. That's the other thing.
this is true. Neither is
I
Gordon.
mean,
I don't care. Come
someone
to
cracked
LA,
a joke
baby.
about
Come
that.
to LA.
Other than that Gatorade commercial, he's not a clutch player.
You know what? I'm this season. I'm going to lean more towards Gordon for
Yeah,
that.
same.
Yeah, why not? Gordy all the way.
I want him to stay, and I want Paul George to LA.
That's reasonable.
I see what you did there. All right.
It's gonna be interesting though. So I guess
It's a good one.
that's happening soon. So by the next time we talk, towards the end of the week.
I believe it's tomorrow, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. So when we reconvene at the end of this Jazz series, we'll have to discuss what happened and what we talked about today.
Is Rudy Gobert going to make an All-NBA team?
Yes. Yeah. I think so.
And where? Second or third?
Third, probably.
Okay.
There were some saying he could make the first team.
You're right.
I don't think he'll make first team. I'm going to go second team.
Okay. First, second, third. All right. I like that.
Yeah. Agree to disagree. Everybody love it.
Yes. Agreed. Well, guys, this has been fun. I'm glad we're doing this.
Yeah, so let's do this again.
Oh, we're doing it soon because we got to talk about this series as a whole when it concludes. Hopefully it concludes on Friday.
By the way, I do have to ask you this one question, and I need you to be honest with me.
Okay.
You tweeted last night that you hate the Clippers. You tweet every night they play against the Jazz.
Yes.
Here's my question, though. Are you a closet Utah Jazz fan?
I will say this. My heart has been softened after having been with them for a couple years. So I think I'm fully on board now that if the Lakers aren't in the playoffs, I would root for Utah in the West.
All right. I like it. We got him to come out of the –
still not ready to own any gear, all right?
He's a closet Jazz fan.
I hate you guys. Love you guys. This has been fun.
It's great stuff. Great stuff. Thanks for the idea. This idea began with Austin about a week ago.
Yeah, you're right. And now we're doing it. And we're going to keep doing it.
Mastermind. What can I say?
We're going to keep doing it. I'm committed.
Me too.
Check mark.
All right, fellas. Until the next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye for now.
Take care. Talk to you soon.
It is what it is. Bye.